ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ.
Namaste ji, namaste. Welcome to TLOI. Today we have with us Rank 1 NLSAT 2025, an online batch student, Ramsha Farhan, one of the best students that we had this year. And
Thank you.
well, that got proven as well. So now let us start. Where did you graduate from? I just want a brief introduction and then we proceed ahead.
So I graduated, I did a combined humanities degree. It was a liberal arts program from Azim Premji University, Bangalore. And this was back in 2020. I actually went on after that to do, I taught English for a little bit. It was English to clear an entrance exam type of English. And then I went and did my master's actually. I was in London for 3 years and then came back. Worked in a language technology lab for a bit and then started prepping for NLSAT. So a bit of a roundabout journey, but I'm now decided on law.
Great. So that's fantastic career path to choose now. Now, what was your score? Part A, Part B's. Part B, do I remember?
Part B, you remember?
48.5.
Yes, which you predicted. My Part A score was 61.25.
Right.
And my Part B score was 48.5, so cumulatively it was 109.75.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I can't remember my percentile, but I'm guessing.
It must be the
Yeah,
over
99
the
point.
yeah, because we had a student who had a rank 10 in Part A but didn't qualify for Part B, as in didn't make it to the final list.
Yeah.
And then there was a student who got a 48 in Part B but didn't have an exceptional score in Part A.
Yeah.
So it works out over a spectrum basically. Can't really ever say who does what in the examination. But with your Part B, we knew that this is going to work out.
Check ho jaye to, yeah.
अगर check हो गया तो.
Yeah.
Right. So let us start with, when did you join the online batch?
I only came back from London in November last year. So I joined the online batch in December. Because I know myself as a learner. I know I'm very teacher dependent and I need the structure of a course. So I was very decided on actually going through with a coaching academy. And then I joined in December, but it was a bit on and off for me. January was a busy month. So really I would say my prep started in February, in early February. And then all the way to the last minute, I was studying.
Okay. So now let us go back to November. If you were to now post all of your experience, meet yourself in November, what would you advise Ramsha from November 24 as to how to go about this exam? Let's talk about Part A.
I would, Well, overall, I would tell her start earlier. You need more time than you think. About Part A specifically, I would definitely say I'm a fast reader. I've spent a long time in higher education, so I have that advantage. But I would say read the question. A lot of the times when I went back and looked at my Part A, I can see exactly where I reasoned and how I reasoned to get the wrong answer and why the other option is more correct. Because a lot of the times they'll give you questions that say, pick the one that most undermines the author's argument or most strengthens the author's argument. So there might be other options that also undermine and also strengthen the author's argument, but which one is the most, which one is the most correct is something I struggled with in the early mocks for sure. And then I would say, think of it as, I didn't spend 75 minutes on Part A, but I highly recommend doing that if you can, because the whole OMR business, which I definitely messed up a few answers by not darkening circles completely or marking something else, then going back and realizing that's not the answer I wanted to mark. So I would say, yeah, with part A, just read the question and then make sure you're marking the answer that you want to. Yeah, ghost with your pen over it for a while or whatever, and keep checking back and forth. So yeah.
So OMRs help, we can reduce this.
Yes.
You need to practice
Massively.
in pretty much, I think, ideally speaking, in an offline format a couple of times before taking the examination.
Yeah.
Let's go for current affairs now.
Yeah. So that was, again, intimidating even for me, and I actually have a newspaper reading habit. I don't want this to be one of those interviews where I say read the newspaper, do your mocks. I think everyone knows that at this point. But definitely don't overwhelm yourself with the news cycle. I think there's so much stuff out there, especially in the digital age. One monthly compendium like the Hulk file is enough. That's really all you need for you to be, hitting all the right bases in terms of getting your current affairs covered. I would say that nearer the end, you will, come March, start to identify the broad trends that are happening around the world in current affairs. And if you double down and do your extra research, like I knew there were going to be questions from AI and education.
Yeah.
I knew there were going to be questions from developments at the ICC and who have they issued arrest warrants for, and have they heard a case recently and all of that. I knew that they were going to ask, because we are in very quick succession, having our CJIs change recently. I knew they were going to ask something about the Supreme Court. So by the end, you'll be able to predict some of the current affairs, and you should trust that intuition that this is going to show up and this is going to show up, because it likely will. They're definitely not in the NLSAT just trying to get you with the current affairs. They're really trying to see, do you broadly know what's happening in the world? Yeah.
So basically, are you aware? And in the last live sessions that we did, by God's grace, because it can't really ever be predicted, it's just that Robert Duarte and all that jazz was revised by God's grace in March. I think March we did that last current affairs
session.
Because by that time CVTPG was already done.
Yeah.
You just have to be aware. Like for example, Ghibli was in a lot of news, right? So that is why the mock series has to be created on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah.
So the older passages, paragraphs become completely outdated. They can be used at best as, I believe, practice material. Right. So that is what we are going to do even this year. And now we move on to current affairs is done, part A is done, so part B. Now part B just before we start with her feedback, so we had 8 mocks this year.
Yes.
That are included in the batch. So since she wasn't coming to the center, there was no pretty much a face-to-face interaction in which you can tell. So offline में हमेशा फर्क थोड़ा सा पड़ता ही पड़ता है.
Right.
But mock 5 तक तो बात नहीं बन रही थी.
Yeah.
But she figured it out from mock 6, 7 and 8.
Yeah.
I think when you saw the good answers that were being written,
Yep.
I think that was a big cue as to how to. And then I showed her answers in our last live of mock 8. I remember I was like, she'll be like, मेरे answer दिखा रहे हैं, सबको पता चल जाएगा कैसे.
Yeah, with the name and everything. Yeah, it was very much, I think you say 6, but I would argue 7 and 8. It was just those last 2 mocks, which I did in a space of 2 days, because I was very set on the last day before the exam, I will not take a mock. I will use that to chill. Yeah, in mock 7, I think is when I figured out that the whole issue, rule, argument, conclusion format, it's not gimmicky, it really is the most effective and elegant way to write an answer. And if you can identify the issue in the simplest words, sometimes it can be as simple if you're dealing with a case of negligence as saying, the issue here is, was this person careful enough? that's it. That's an effective opening line. If there's anything in quotes, I would latch onto it. I would be like, let's break this down with the facts of the case. Use every word in there, try and fit it to your argument. And I would say, and this is important because everyone at NLS who explains this exam to you, and they will do that in an online webinar, will tell you that there's no right answer. And that's true. But there is a side with a stronger argument in most of these questions. And that makes for a stronger answer. If you can quickly identify that side, and underline all the reasons that you're going to argue this way. I remember in the last mock there was something about a binding contract and whether a verbal agreement constituted a binding contract. And I remember seeing a lot of answers that said no, but the agreement is verbal. Right, the agreement is verbal, but that's the only reason that you can argue it's not a binding contract. If you actually read that question, there were a lot of other reasons to argue that it actually is. Or can be understood as a binding contract. The two people were friends and they had an agreement and all of this stuff. So sometimes the very obvious argument will have only one reason to go with it. Whereas with practice, you will be able to actually identify how can I write a stronger answer by simply picking the right side. Yeah.
So
that was part B.
Yeah. Pretty much. Now we go to the essay portion.
Yes, which I probably dedicated the least prep to. And I honestly recommend that. I think by the end of this exam, you're left with about 15 minutes to write this essay at most. And the one thing I will say is I felt like all three of the essay topics this year, they did lay out some bait to see if you would just, take it and prove that you have a deep reading ability. And I'll just explain what I mean by that. There was a question about whether women should be compensated for domestic labor. And they clearly wanted you to reference her, she?
Mrs.
Yes. Mrs. The Hindi movie that is a adaptation of The Great Indian Kitchen. So if you do that up front in your essay, I think you're already fetching marks. Even if the rest of your essay is a very 12th grade, argumentative essay. I did the one on whether social media should be banned for minors. And I knew that they wanted you to mention that Australia now has a policy that's restricting minors from, creating social media accounts, or under 16s from creating, social media accounts. So if you just mention that straight up in your essay, and then, go ahead, make the most obvious, simple arguments, that's really all you have time for, then I think you're pretty much fetching all the marks you can, because you really don't have time for any more. So all that to say, just reference a current affair. That's usually what they want you to do. That's how all the topics were framed this year. And then, make your easiest arguments.
In my own experience with this is that you really need to wake up sometimes around October, November.
Yes.
And be really, really aware till about March.
Right.
Because that is the time I believe, so they for sure designed this paper sometime around March. After the Oscar ceremony, because all of these questions, they keep on popping up. Especially relating to all the pop culture movies. Right? So they are definitely creating this paper in sometime around March end. However, from October onwards, so of course every examiner goes back, and October mein ho jate hain Nobel and all these award ceremonies. So the major current affairs, that Ganga starts to flow sometime around October. And that is so like this year it was expected actually, Ghibli, Shyam Benegal, because this is what, of course, out of all the Padma awards, there were certain names that were shining through. That इनके ऊपर जरा थोड़ा सा दिमाग इस पर लगा के रखना है, and especially prominent personalities who are celebrities as well, who are making the news. Because last year, I don't recall it right now, but last year it was Andrew Tate was asked.
Right.
Like which guy was arrested in Romania, right?
Right.
So this is a PYQ. That means the examiner
is on TikTok.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
The examiner is young.
Yeah.
And is following and is not asking you Sarkari level questions. That does not mean that you are not aware about the Sarkari level questions as well, right? And what about time management? Did you struggle with time management in the mocks?
So, no, I think I did in some of them. I think some were harder than others. And then on exam day, I did. Because one thing they don't tell you is that the time you have for filling out your name and your details and all of that is included in your exam time. So it's not like they let you do that earlier on like you can with a computerized test, right? You just start. So I would definitely say if you're taking your mocks, and you really want to simulate the exam experience, take 5 minutes off of your time. Because that is going to go in filling out all your details and checking the question paper and all of that. They want you to do that in the time they allot for the exam. So because of that, I did struggle. I remember looking up when I finished my part A because I was very decided that I will not look at the clock, and they had a big digital clock in front of us. I will not look at that in the middle of part A because I'm going to freak out. I'm going to think I'm going slowly. And over an hour had gone by, which was not what happened in the mocks. For me, I was finishing my party around the 55, 56 minute mark. But yeah, over an hour, I think an hour and 12 minutes had gone by. And I was reasonably confident at this point that I want to move on to part B because my whole thing was I want to get my part B checked because I feel that's my strength. So I spent a lot of time on the part B legal reasoning answers because I really think that that's the meat of this paper. I think it's not necessarily where you can fetch the most marks because I think they score it quite harshly.
Yes.
But it is where you can make the strongest argument for yourself as a candidate to study law, is in those Part B legal reasoning answers. So I was very determined to finish all of them because you really want to spread out the catchment area in which you can fetch marks. A 4 or a 5 in one answer is still better than a 0. So my whole thing was I wanted to make sure I attempted everything. I definitely didn't want to leave any questions. And that's why I rushed through some of Part B. I also think the questions were very long this year. They had a lot of, data in there. And they definitely wanted you to be someone who can strike out parts of it and say, this is not relevant, this is not relevant. And underline only the relevant bits. So it took a little longer to read the questions than it did in the mocks. And yeah, that's why I ended up with 15 minutes for my essay, whereas in the mocks I ended up with 30. So exam day goes very differently than the mocks do. The mocks are very important, but I definitely think on exam day, if you get to the essay and you're like, I have 10 minutes left, that doesn't necessarily mean all hope is lost. You can probably write an effective essay in those 10 minutes and wrap it up. So yes,
I believe 10 mocks, ideally, right? 10 mocks is pretty much the game, right? And after figuring out critical reasoning and everything else, it is all that is left is pretty much it is practice and more practice.
Yeah.
And an answer structure to the part B, like she said, is to spot out, to extract out the legal issue, focus on it, write the answer, and complete the paper. So I have had a brilliant student in who couldn't clear Delhi Judiciary only because she couldn't complete the paper.
Right.
Completing the paper is extremely important.
Yeah.
One of our other students who had like a rank 10 in Part A overall couldn't clear because he could not complete the essay. So the major point is, and this year in fact they were quite lenient. In fact, they listened to student feedback, eliminated the 6th case.
Yeah, whole question.
Because in the past years, we were also experiencing that not many were able to get to the essay with the sixth question. So now this paper has evolved into pretty much its perfect form. I do not see any amendments for next year.
I don't think so.
Right?
Yep.
If you have anything to add, you can.
I do. I think I know that not being able to, for example, clear this exam would be really devastating. But I do think that there's value in the process of studying for this exam that there really, I don't find the same with a more, traditional kind of MCQ format, because the preparation process is to acquire and hone skills that are going to be very essential and valuable anyway. If you come out of this with a newspaper reading habit, or you come out of this being able to write fast and effectively, or if you come out of this, being able to craft a very elegant essay, that's why I really enjoyed actually studying for the NLSAT, as stressful as it was and as high stakes and it was and all of that. I would also say definitely keep your routine before the exam. Don't do what I did. Get your sleep, caffeinate an hour before and all of that. Because when you actually go in there and you're sleep deprived and you haven't had your morning caffeine and you just, have decided that today I have the courage to do this without my coffee, the two things that will really suffer is your OMR accuracy and your writing speed. And I saw that in my case. I was someone who figured out OMR, like how to do it perfectly in my third or fourth mocks, but on the exam day I can spot two different areas where I've made OMR errors. So that's if you do the math, that's 2.5 marks gone, just because you didn't mark something correctly. So those are the two things I would say is, have a routine, have your regular routine before the exam, and also see the studying process as, this larger thing, this time in your life where you can really acquire these very important skills.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe we'll conclude it here.
Yep.
Right. You were in the full batch, right? So you prepared other subjects as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Constitution and all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
And you took MHCT as well, as in you sat for it, right?
Yes.
I believe that whether you enroll somewhere or not, but studying, it from a 360-degree perspective, even other subjects, even though they're not being used per se in the examination, I believe that it aids someone's understanding. And I've always noted this fact that people who are more rounded off in their prep rather than focusing कि अच्छा ये तो पूछते नहीं, ये तो करने की हमें ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, I believe that they've always done better.
Yeah.
Somehow this is the pattern, this is the observable pattern over the years.
Yeah.
And like she said, that even preparing for this examination gets your reading, writing. In fact, this is an examination of your reading and writing, and whether you can comprehend the legal issue that is being thrown at you, and not focus on the irrelevant stuff. And essays, again, all about you being aware. I believe people also focus on a lot of flowery English and all that jazz. However,
they do not care.
They keep things simple but to the point, and it has to make one thing, as I kept on repeating in part B, it has to make sense.
He kept saying legal and logical sense. But I abide by that. Yeah.
So that is what the paper is pretty much testing you.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll conclude it here, and many congratulations again. May God bless you, and thank you for taking out the time to do this interview. And ठीक है जी. Just one last example. I may not do many interviews. Just want to give you one example for those people who have not been selected this year. There's a student called Pragya Chhetri, ranked 32 this year. Last year she was a student in the offline batch, in fact, and she didn't make it. I didn't know where she was throughout the last year. She just messaged me like yesterday. No coaching, no mocks, made it this year. She figured out the paper last year. She had the skills. missed out, I think, by 10 odd marks, has taken the seat and is going. One of the most brilliant students, by the way, that I've had in the offline batch, and faced a lot of issues on the personal front as well. But you know, still. So if you have not made it, and if you wish to take the second attempt, you pretty much must have figured out the examination by now. So do not lose heart and try again if you wish to. If life allows you that liberty. All right. Wishing you guys all the best. And if you need anything, well, reach out to her over LinkedIn or whatever. I think it's a lot of student community helping each other out in this examination. All right. Take care. May God bless you all. Bye.
Bye.